This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
Well, good morning, Max. Welcome to the Born or Made podcast. Glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for the humidity.
Yeah.
It's no shortage of that around this place, is there?
I even wore 2 layers. What the hell was I thinking?
I was like, what the heck, man? Was it cold here this morning for you? It's like, oh, it's 70.
Absolutely not. Complete opposite.
No, it's hot here. So first thing I always like to ask was, where are you at? But you're here in Boca Raton with us today. But
yes.
So where were you born at?
Yeah, so born in Manhattan, but grew up on Long Island, New York. Went to school all the way through high school and then college in University at Buffalo.
Okay, so it's nice and cool up there. A little snow.
Lots of snow.
So going through your childhood, Long Island,
yes.
Were you kind of out in the rural part? Because when I first went there, I think of New York, right? Like this conglomerate. You went to Long Island, it's like it's the country.
Yeah. I was only about 45 minutes away from New York City. So,
but it gets rural pretty fast when you get on that island.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. So I was like closer towards the city where it's less rural, just more pure suburbia. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you got some nice roads that take you out to like the Hamptons and stuff, and you get some country feel. But I was on the other side of Long Island.
So what's the airport at the very end of Long Island?
Yeah, JFK.
No, at the very at the water.
Oh, all the way at the other side.
It's not. Islip? No.
Yeah, there's an Islip airport. Yeah,
so
I've never been to it.
Okay, so I fly in there. They started bringing Southwest Airlines in there.
Okay.
And we started flying in there because it was easier to come up than come out of the city. We were doing apartments in that market. And so I always remember that place, and driving from there up was like, it was in the middle of friggin' nowhere.
Yeah, totally. Honestly, never been to that area. Like whenever I would go out that way, it's like to Montauk, which is like all the way out on the edge of Long Island for like a cool summer weekend type of thing with buddies. But all in all, amazing place to grow up in. Don't have it's made me who I am today. Hence,
absolutely.
Born or Made, right?
That's right. So you get through high school. Do you have any specific interest in high school that you were kind of
yeah. Okay. Big tennis player. Growing up. Got into golf while I was in high school and have continued to play both those sports through, today. I'm 34 now. While I was, in high school, I would say more of like the things that have made me more of who I am today kind of popped up while I was in college versus high school. But yeah, like a lot of the tennis teaching and tennis lessons I got into as a tennis instructor started in high school. So that was one of my key interests for sure. Some other things like being like different debate clubs and stuff that never like materialized into much later on.
But it's a great skill.
Hell yeah. Yeah, public speaking, stuff like that.
Something to learn.
Yeah.
Like I look at some of these guys, a lot of them are on TV actually today, and some of them are some of the greatest debaters. And
absolutely.
And then you see that because you have to think quickly, and what a skill, right? Like
totally.
In some ways you think every kid, that almost should be a class in high school. But when I was in high school, of course this was in the 70s, that was the nerd upon nerd. Like, golf was kind of nerdy. Of course, growing in Texas, if you didn't play football, right? But you like the golf team was like weird. Now I'm like, I love golf. Like I wished I would have played golf in high school.
Totally.
And a debate would have been like.
Yeah. As someone working on a lot of cool things with schools, in particular high schools and middle schools and education technology, I definitely have opinions on what they should be teaching and what opportunity students should be given with how fast the world's changing.
Yeah, but have athletics as part of that process because it does create some incredible life skills.
Absolutely,
just now with technology. So you get out of high school, you're going to Buffalo. Okay,
yep.
So what are you majoring in?
Yes, I was a business major over there in Buffalo.
All right. So you get through there, graduate.
Yeah, graduated, but like before graduating, there was a really, really cool business plan competition at University at Buffalo that they hosted each year. And I kind of got hooked or addicted to entering it.
Okay.
So my sophomore year and junior year of college, I entered with a super cool like Uber-style transportation service before Uber existed. Really? Unfortunately, I kind of got laughed off the stage first time entering, second time entering with it, made it to the finals, but unfortunately didn't win. And then it was the year after graduating college that I re-entered a third time with a totally different idea of video conferencing software company that I won $10,000 in that same competition. So yeah, that was friggin' awesome, and used that money to basically embark on my first chapter post-college in tech entrepreneurship, which was building this awesome video conferencing software called 𝗕ncia. It's called 𝗕ncia.com.
Really?
Yeah.
So so let's back up here. So you said you're 34. Yep. So this is basically 2010.
2011.
Yeah,
right.
coming out right there. Okay. And then, so now you're doing this. How long did you venture on this? And what was the name of it again called?
Yeah, it's called 𝗕ncia.
𝗕ncia.
So remember, like, the short form for conversation is convo, right?
Yeah.
The V was for video convos or video conversations. So, yeah, we worked on 𝗕ncia for 3.5 years. Put my blood, sweat, and tears, literally and figuratively, into it. Got like 3 different iterations of the software built, which was fantastic. Taught me a whole bunch about technology, building web applications, how just different, components of a successful software business would work. But unfortunately, mine wasn't all too successful after 3.5 years, or not as successful as I hope it would have been. So I had to bury, that business in the graveyard, like most of us tech entrepreneurs have to do. And yeah, it was then when I moved into my next business venture, which I know we're going to talk about, but yeah, happy to fill in any gaps if you're curious.
So I have a question for you. So you go through this first one, wasn't successful.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? I mean, what was the recovery time? Because I know some of the stuff that I've done and failed at, it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, but is I always think, right, you got to have losses to appreciate the wins, right?
Definitely.
I mean, so you get that one. Did it take a period of time for you to get past that, or were you able to kind of move forward? I mean, young is nice.
Yeah. Yeah,
because you got time,
nice.
right?
Yes.
It's 61. My window's getting short,
Yeah,
right?
I feel you.
So how did you get through that? I mean, did you have a process or?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, getting through that, believe it or not, I kind of just jumped right into my next venture. So there wasn't like a crazy post-mortem period.
Yeah, just get in and go.
I jumped right into my next venture, which happened to be like my biggest claim to fame venture. That being the viral hoverboards from 2015, but we'll talk about that in a second. I think, though, what absolutely did take place in whatever short form post-mortem period I did experience was just like coming to grips with like a true breakup, right? With this partner business, girlfriend of mine, right? Like literally.
You've been invested in for literally 3.5 years of your life.
Like straight up. I was like so balls to the walls, knee deep in that company, and thought it was the best thing since sliced bread, right? Like what type of impact it was having, and hosting these incredible conversations with people all around the world about crucial current events and different, super cool, philanthropic style topics, nonprofit style topics. And, ultimately, I took like a little vacation, because I hadn't taken a vacation since starting the business. And kind of just sitting on a beach in Aruba. So if anyone needs this, playbook, happy to advise.
That one. All right, good. Okay, yeah.
But just sitting on a beach, I was able to like kind of come up with, and it's no pun intended, like some lines in the sand of like certain things I had to like get done by a certain period to continue on with this venture. And when I didn't meet those goals, I knew it was totally fine to put this thing to rest and move on to my next thing. And there was a couple of advisor conversations for sure with trusted friends and folks of mine that where you're going to give me some good advice, but that was like a real nice short form way of like totally coming to grips with knowing it was going to be fine to put that to rest and move on to the next thing.
So most entrepreneurs I find do have short memories. I mean, you've got to take the loss, get on. Like maybe sports helps with that.
Yep.
You lose a tennis match.
Yep.
Well, there's going to be another one tomorrow, and I would think about in real estate, like never get caught up in the deal, because there's always going to be another deal tomorrow.
Yep.
And it's, not get emotionally attached, which you do.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in one business for 25 years.
Yeah.
I am so emotionally attached. I literally wonder if I did something different, would I be able to let that go? Because it's been part of my life for so long. So you get into the hoverboard. And so tell me how that works. Because, that was like a big deal. Like every kid, one of my grandkids had one. And it was amazing. Like I never got on it, by the way.
You know,
I've seen a lot of really good videos.
Yes.
The results were not well.
Yes.
So what started you down that path? I mean, you're in technology, so you understand that.
Totally. So my old business partner from the Uber before Uber venture while we were in college, he was working on a business in relation to like iPhone accessories and such. And he had almost been like, you know, trying to attempt to poach me while I was kind of coming to grips with moving on from my 𝗕ន់𝗱𝗲 venture. And after I like decided to truly bury that in the graveyard, this buddy of mine and his business partner, they eventually turned into my roommates. They had been in China in 2014 at a huge trade show in Guangzhou, China, called the Canton Fair. And the Canton Fair is like one of those massive trade shows that you know, have probably been to, I'm sure, and many others that listen to your show have been to. And they were walking around that trade show floor and discovered this miraculous hoverboard device, put their feet on it, rode it around. They were just like, holy shit, this is like so freaking cool. And they had convinced the, you know, booth exhibitor to let them purchase a couple of units and bring them back to the States. They showed that to me. I had just like put to rest my old company, and I was, you know, thinking about joining up with them anyway for this iPhone accessories business, and saw this hoverboard, and I was like, yeah, like this is pretty damn remarkable. So at that point, it was like going to move in with both of them in Queens, New York, and we're going to, you know, figure out how to launch this business type of thing. And that's exactly what we did. So I jumped right into that company. It was called Funky Duck. That was the name of the brand.
Funky Duck?
Funky Duck, yeah, with a PH and 2 E's.
I actually like that. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. So, yeah, basically, you know, we're talking like late 2014, early 2015, break up with my 𝗕ន់𝗱𝗀 business, move on and move in with my two new roommates, Matt and Max, also another Max. And long story short, a couple months later, we launched this crazy popular hoverboard business that really took the world by storm and went viral overnight. And did millions of dollars in business in a matter of weeks. So yeah, it was a really, really remarkable time period to be a 25-year-old entrepreneur. And certainly it came with a really interesting roller coaster style ride. And yeah, won't go too deep unless you want to pose any questions to dig in. But yeah, it got really nuts.
You got on a rocket.
Yes.
Like literally most of us grind, you know, you going down. I mean, you guys went from here vertical.
Yes, correct. That's exactly right.
Because I mean, you know, when that thing came out, it went from nobody had ever heard of it to it went viral because the videos alone. I mean, we were watching videos, especially, you know, people my age, you know, back then would have been, you know, 50s. And you're like, are you freaking crazy? Like, why are you launching into, you know, Christmas trees? And I mean, and then every kid wanted them.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, it literally turned into the hottest gift product of that entire year. You know, Time Magazine did a write-up on us.
Really?
Yeah, because each year they do like the top inventions of the year type of issue in Time Magazine. And there was hoverboards right at, you know, #1. And Funky Duck mentioned in the article. And that was one of countless articles that we were connected with that year because it was just literally the hottest thing. And, you know, ultimately it was one of these incredible stories of a classic rise to the top on a rocket ship. We're feeling like, you know, kings of the world type of thing with this business just thriving and people just literally reaching out to us left and right, everyone from the Kardashians to Jamie Foxx to just average ordinary customers wanting to buy these things. And, you know, you mentioned some of these crazy viral videos. There happen to be some negative viral videos that started creeping up, and those videos, unfortunately, you know, ended up being a sort of lead-in into some of the negativity that this industry ended up kind of receiving in terms of negative bad press. And that negative bad press ultimately ended up turning the tides, unfortunately not in our favor, nor for any other company that was trying to sell these devices. So, yeah, we can totally dig into that crazy, you know, now all of a sudden downward spiral.
I mean, if you really think about it, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, something that grows that fast, I mean, you're missing a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You just don't even know, especially, so I could see myself, you get that much fame, we'll call it, right? Because it was fame, really, truly was.
Absolutely.
You just get blinded.
Yep.
You know, I've written about that, about, you know, having blinders on. I learned that at a very, actually, I was about 23 when I learned that lesson. And it was an eye-opening lesson.
Totally.
Yeah. You learn things, you know, as you have learned now, is like the stuff you remember is the painful stuff. Because when you come back down from that ride, it's fast. Oh yeah. And that's got to be just, what did that do to your system? Because that would shock me. I mean, I remember when it happened to me. Totally. It was gut-wrenching. Like,
yeah, I mean, you call it blinders. I kind of call it mirages. So
great analogy.
We got casted in mirages, no doubt about it. You know, we basically felt like, what can be wrong? You got, you know, CNBC interviewing us over here, and
Time Magazine,
you know, featuring us over there, and countless others in between there. Literally highlighting our brand, and all these different massive A-lister celebrities happily posting not once, not twice, not 3 times, as often as they want to, because they're just addicted to this device, and they're constantly just posting about it and tagging us and telling their whole following of millions of followers, you got to buy a funky duck. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. I'm floating, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And that mirage basically, you know, and unfortunately took our eye off of, well, what might be happening underneath the hood, right? You had this like beautiful looking car. We were talking about cars and race cars before. You have this beautiful looking outside of a car, but what's happening within that engine? You know, is there a leak over here, or is something, you know, is there a clicking sound over there? That doesn't seem to be right. And we were having major issues related to customer service, related to inventory management, supply chain, counterfeit credit card use, right? So like all these hackers you hear about stealing people's credit cards. We had major issues that were unfortunately bubbling up, and they were exacerbating themselves day after day. And as popular as we continued to get on this rocket ship, all that shit of negativity underneath the hood was starting to build up. And that was just internal, right? You also had these different external factors that were happening with all these different crappy knockoff devices from China being built in washing machine factories and blue jeans factories.
And you were getting rolled up in that.
Yeah, so like, although we were selling like the patented device, and we were feeling great about our device, right? Like, it was super smooth to ride on, you know, all the different battery certifications, et cetera, well, it just so happened that like 10,000 other factories in China that were producing hoverboards didn't focus on producing hoverboards. They built washing machines and blue jeans. But decided to put some engineers, or, you know, just technicians in their said warehouse on reverse engineering some different hoverboard devices that looked identical to ours. And those started flooding the market by the millions, right? We were selling our devices.
Really?
But we weren't selling millions of hoverboards. We sold a couple of thousand hoverboards, but all these other different people, business folks that wanted to get in on this action we had developed, started selling their own hoverboards, but with these shitty ass knockoffs. and
you
those
got sucked into it.
Yeah, because those devices started having major battery malfunctions, and they started overheating when you charge them. And if you left them charged in the outlet, they were vulnerable to catch fire.
That's a problem.
And after about a dozen homes burned down before Christmas 2015, then another dozen homes burned down post-Christmas 2015. And then, you know, all of a sudden, ABC World News has a segment on hoverboards on fire, and they're highlighting all these different viral YouTube videos of people's hoverboards catching fire.
Which means it's yours, and yet it's not, because it's all gets rolled into it.
Yeah, like we were all just lumped under the same umbrella. And although we might have been the good guys selling like a really high-end device, granted we had all of our other different issues I was mentioning before happening within the business that we were trying to solve as entrepreneurs, that external element was something that I don't think really even the bestest and brightest of entrepreneurs in that thick of it could have really solved for, because it was a massive tidal wave of negative traction, essentially, that hit this innocent little device.
So looking back, I mean, obviously there's some simple stuff you go, oh, I could have done this, and this. But what do you think, was there one thing I mean, that you really thought, I mean,
absolutely,
not the credit card, not the, I mean, those are things that every corporation deals with on some level.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, this is an easy one. So after the hoverboard saga ended, I started building a media company. It's called When Going Viral. And the mission always behind When Going Viral, this media company of mine, has always been to be conscientious and prepared ahead of time for trying to launch a viral business and to take the proper steps necessary from a planning perspective before attempting to launch a viral business. Because if you don't, that's where you can potentially jeopardize your entire business, and hence when going viral can sometimes really fucking suck.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, yeah. Now that I see your deal, I could see why.
Correct. Yeah, and I hope your podcast doesn't mind a couple of
we don't care.
F-bombs here or there. But yeah, like long story short, after that experience, I got really motivated and inspired to want to share this incredible story, because it is incredible, as you could probably tell. And I started this media brand called When Going Viral, and it was originally When Going Viral Sucks. I dropped the sucks a couple years back just because I was like, I don't want the negative connotation, but like that When Going Viral mission, one of the educational pillars was always just like, let's prepare properly ahead of trying to launch a viral business so that you don't ultimately jeopardize it because you attempt to try and go viral without that planning done ahead of time. So yeah, like that's the absolute, if you're looking for one key major takeaway, as I think your question was asking, that's no doubt the main takeaway from me. And it's obviously, evolved into many other amazing lessons learned, from the credit card fraud topic to the inventory management topic to doing business with China topic. But yeah, at its core, that is like the one takeaway I'm always trying to drill into folks.
So this intrigues me when you said, so you said it was patented, right?
Yep. Patented, Chinese patent device. Correct. So
how could you not block that? I mean, I hear about this all the time, mainly like apparel and a lot of this high-end stuff. I'm a big watch guy, and they've got new Rolexes right now. You can go out and buy, and they look real. And the only way you can tell the difference is if you pick it up.
Yep.
And so we say we have patents, but do we? I mean, based on your experience?
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, it just goes into more and more of the thickness of this book about the hoverboard.
Right,
and I've been working on a book regarding it, but it's wild. I mean, the long story short answer for you would be, well, we might have had this awesome device that had a Chinese patent tied to it.
Is the keyword Chinese?
Chinese patent, yes. But
not U.S. patent.
Take it even further, one step further. A couple years earlier, there was a gentleman, an inventor, who had invented another type of device, not identical to this one from China, but another very similar looking hoverboard device. It's called HoverTrax. And this gentleman had his U.S. patent for a similar type of two-wheeled device. And so essentially what took place is, like, all of a sudden we might have been selling our Chinese patent device here in the States, which had different specifications that were not identical by any means and we had spoken to IP attorneys about it, and there were enough differences between how the foot pedals and such worked on our device versus theirs and some other differentiators that, we felt comfortable selling this thing. But this U.S. patent owner, had his hair on fire. He was like, well, wait, I developed this.
And I can understand why.
I should have the rights to be selling this exclusively here in the States. But he had never actually popularized the product like we had, right? And so this turned into a cluster F of additional issues related to litigation, IP, and intellectual property, violations that, ultimately just made this 18-month venture of mine just all the more convoluted and nuts. You know what I mean? But to just kind of go back to your question, like there's amazing protections that you can get from patents, but it's also not all that advantageous when like other mass market countries, maybe like a China, aren't going to ultimately respect said U.S. patent. And one could say that like there was a mass, violation to some sense that took place here in the U.S., given that we were selling this Chinese patent device here, and it created this whole, massive undertaking of like, well, who's in the right, who's in the wrong type of thing.
And that takes time. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like people go, oh, well, you can fix that in a week. I mean,
Right.
a year and a half's not
that much time.
unrealistic
Yeah.
to even get to court.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And
That's
like, look, like there were different
crazy.
like cease and desist letters sent in here or there. And,
Absolutely.
you know, our attorneys reviewed it, and they didn't think that there was any, you know, issue on our side. But then we were having other people like send us cease and desist letters. And then we were having to send cease and desist letters because people were trying to use our amazing brand name.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, as like, oh, wait, we sell a funky duck as well, even though they were selling these shit, you know, hoverboards from washing machine factories. So it was
and everything was a hoverboard,
correct,
which just
exactly.
gets sucked in.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
like calling it a car.
We might have had a cool name, but it's not
Yes.
like, unfortunately, that's what stuck with people.
Absolutely.
Hoverboards
Okay.
is what ultimately ended up sticking, and to this day, still sticking.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wow. So now are you still working on what is it called again? Wayne's?
When going viral.
When going viral.
Yep.
Okay. So are you still working on that now?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So when going viral is essentially a media brand centered around basically becoming the leading storyteller behind different viral business phenomenons.
Okay.
So think about the hoverboard story.
okay.
We would both agree that was a viral business phenomenon.
100%. Yeah.
And so I have this media company vision of sharing the stories about other viral business phenomenons using things like public speaking, podcasts, docuseries, books, right? Various different media channels, traditional and non-traditional, right? Social media as well, to highlight the lessons learned, the insights, the takeaways, the tips and tricks, the wild roller coasters that not only myself, but others, like you mentioned earlier, have been on when it came to these types of businesses. And so, yeah, that's like a long-term sort of marathon style business of mine that over the last few years, you know, since the hoverboard saga, I've done tons of public speaking, around the world. Sharing my story. I've created these amazing workshops about my story, and, you know, they're super high energy. They're super educational. They're very engaging. So people love that. But, you know, I've been recently trying to pitch a docuseries about not just my story, but other similar viral business phenomenons. And I've recently been taken off the cobwebs from a book outline I wrote back in 2016 about the story, and taking a relooked, fresh eyes at that book outline so I can really enhance it and turn to something that's like, you know, truly publishable, you know, worthy, right? So, yeah, I kind of like pick and choose different times and different assets that I continue to work on with that venture, but with that larger vision in mind.
So we were talking earlier. So on yours, are the electric stuff that we were looking at earlier. So
totally.
Are you doing that through this as well, or is that something different?
Yeah,
or is this another,
totally. So think of when going viral as having like a consulting arm as well.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I act as like these days, almost like a fractional COO
Okay.
for a couple of European-based education technology companies. So part of my story is right after the hoverboard saga, I actually did a little stint in corporate America for 3 years. I got a couple of big boy jobs, seeing what that was like.
Actually got a paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was working at 2 different ed tech companies over those 3 years, but they were both in education technology. And I started to grow a real passion for impacting students and kids through just really remarkable ed tech style programs for schools to use in the classroom. Teaching kids how to code, teaching kids about engineering, circuitry, you know, electric vehicles, you name it. So the last 4 years, I've gone back on my own. After the corporate America stint, I went back on my own.
Yeah.
And, you know, funny enough, I just happened to work with 2 different European ed tech companies that were trying to build a presence in the States. One of them is called 𝗕finde. That's the one that we were just chatting about before going online here, where it's almost like a combination of Lego meets Tesla. It's a build-your-own electric vehicle product line for students. And the second company is called Riders. It's a online robotics and coding curriculum as well as competition platform. So some of that same like scratching the itch of competition, athletics, you know, that we're traditionally used to. Like these days in schools, you can have robotics teams and coding clubs and things like that, where you can get students pretty hyped about, working in a competitive sense against other teams, against like
and
around
that's
the world.
Global, yeah,
Absolutely,
at that point.
yeah. So, that's like the consulting arm of When Going Viral, where I, advise and help build other businesses, and hopefully one or two of them might, eventually go viral. I've had a couple of clients that have absolutely gone viral since I've been working with them, which is awesome. These two companies in particular just been like kind of the longest standing clients that I've been working with of late.
Well, the Lego robotic, with Tesla intrigues me because, I mean, we're going electric on some level.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm a fighter of that, I like gas-powered vehicles, but then you look at Formula One, which we both like.
Yep.
You love it more than I'm just still learning. I'm just infatuated by watching the race yesterday. Go McLaren, kind of finally got a 1-2. Still kind
Zach
of
Brown, listen to this video and talk to us.
Yeah, call us
We saw you
up,
one Wheel of
please.
Fortune
That's
when you were a
right.
kid.
Absolutely. Yeah, we need to. Yeah, what a great story. I'd love to have him. I'd love to hear his story too,
yeah.
wouldn't you?
Oh my God.
But they're doing stuff with these electric cars now. I mean, Macan just came out with a fully electric. This thing's like 540 horsepower, and it doesn't even have a gas engine.
It's wild.
I guess for me, it's the noise.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, it's that. I mean,
they say they can make noises, and I guess Porsche has done a really good job. But I don't know. It struggles because.
Yeah.
Have you driven Teslas?
Yeah, I've test driven a Tesla before, and my buddy has one, so I've been in his, and I get, I am amazed by the whole world of like self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles, right? Like that's where I get like super stoked about that industry. And you can have self-driving cars in the gasoline world, but on the electric vehicle front, it becomes a lot easier when the whole car is really being powered by a computer, right? At its core.
Absolutely.
And at the same token, you have, thousands of less parts in an electric vehicle compared to a gas-powered vehicle. So you have like just a remarkably different, overall structure from the chassis to the wheels to the whole system versus like a gas-powered car which has all these thousands of parts that are constantly, maybe having different issues over the lifespan of a car. So, yeah, I mean, long story short, people should choose whatever the hell car they want to drive. But I think it's so cool that there's this like ability to have, mainstream, electric vehicles taking people everywhere, and also not having anyone in front of the steering wheel and still taking people everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it'll take time. Yeah. But I read a book years ago, and it talked about in the 20s and I guess the 18s and 20s, but I think it was even into the early 40s. They were talking about like 300,000 horses a year were still dying in Chicago because they were still pulling wagons.
Really?
With horses, and don't hold me to the timelines. But it always intrigued me. It's like, well, that's what this is. It just takes time for these things to evolve. Sure. And we think, it's going to happen so fast, but it took them, 20, 30 years to get rid of the horse.
Totally. And
so think about that. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think in 2022, it was like electric vehicle car sales were like 10% of the global population of total car sales. And like, I look at that number, I'm like, that's a super meaningful number in my mind. Like,
it's a big number.
That's a big ass number. Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised like to that inch up to like 20% within the next 5 years, but I don't think it needs to happen like tomorrow.
No, I think it'll take time. So going back a little bit, so you get a business degree, but you really understand electronics. But you're talking about coding, and I mean, you found that all of a sudden you related? Like, so for me, coding is just. My father was a coder, back in the 60s and 70s. It was just zeros and ones, And now this stuff and what it takes. I mean, you've suddenly just got a passion for that all ties with that?
Yeah, like, so I think like and this would be cool for you to like realize, like when I started that first video conferencing software company, Vonvo, I didn't have a tech background.
No.
I didn't know jack shit about
Yeah, you were a golfer.
Technology.
Yeah, you're a tennis player, right?
Yeah. Like I was, just not in that world. But real quick, you learn a lot about how technology works, and real quick, you learn some of your own deficiencies of trying to build a tech company as a non-technical co-founder. And, it forced me to really learn the ins and outs of how this video conferencing software was going to work. I didn't end up building it, but working alongside of super smart engineers, and getting the chance to understand what was ultimately underpinning the infrastructure of this software, really clicked with me. And it also made me really appreciate how important having those technology skills are for that same earlier generation that might have been in high school, you know, while I was like 21, maybe those, you know, students a few years back behind me. And I had just, you know, read an article about this ed tech company, Little Bits. That was who I had worked for. That was my first corporate America gig. And after the hoverboard saga ended, I had applied for a job there as like, it was like a VP of marketing style role. I had no business applying for this role, but they took an interview and I told them about my hoverboard experience and the Volvo experience. And they found, you know, my background super interesting, and I ended up getting my first job there. But yeah, like that product and that company was giving elementary school students, middle school students, like early fundamental knowledge about how circuits and coding and technology works. And you could see like the instant gratification these kids would have. And then the second corporate America job that I worked at was called Flatiron School. It's a coding boot camp. So we take like police officers and Starbucks baristas and turn them into software developers in 16 weeks. And so through that company, I really, again, got additional exposure to software engineering, and actually like completed some of their coursework myself because I wanted to get a better understanding tangibly about how coding works.
That's where helping your when you were doing the first Uber in college, learning how to write that stuff.
Right.
What a skill that you,
then. So yeah, like I got, you know, more into the weeds of the true fundamentals behind technology through some of those corporate America jobs, and you know, the passion for having an impact, especially on like that younger generation, is just something that like resonates with me. I think it's really cool.
Well, the two you're working on right now, I was thinking about like, you're really helping develop the future of the world by those things.
1000%.
That's really what you're doing. And that's, I could see that that's where you're really passionate about. Yeah. Because I mean, robotics, coding, electric car. I mean, robots just blow my mind. Yeah. I mean, like they've been around forever.
Right.
You can see where they're coming. And then God knows we won't go down this trail with AI. And the ability for it to learn. I mean, it's just, and you're right there in it. I mean, you're kind of in the womb of that. I mean, because we think we've gotten so much. I mean, you could go down some holes right now that you couldn't even imagine where we could be in 10 years.
Totally. No, I just think it's really cool. And, you know, when you see, you know, that sort of classic, like either smile from a student or teacher, you know, talking about how much of an impact these programs are having on their students, it's super gratifying, and it's just awesome to like feel like you're making a difference while also still sticking on your entrepreneurial, you know, trend that you've been on and on that path that you've been on, right? And yeah, like even in that world, nothing's gonna like just change overnight, but I've been having some great success in Miami over the last 4 years since I've lived here, and now starting to get opportunities to bring this magic of what I've been doing in Miami with a lot of these students in schools to other schools around the country. So yeah, I find it to be just overall super fulfilling, and it's just great to continue to be able to scratch that entrepreneurial itch simultaneously, right?
So when you're in this, doing this right now, and you're talking to a kid and you see that light come on, that's got to feel pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty badass.
See that, like you may have just clicked a switch for a kid that could literally change his entire life.
I genuinely feel like that happens on a pretty regular basis when I get a chance to like interact with some of these students who are using these programs, and they tell me about it, and it's like very vividly clear that their life has been changed for the better, and like they're going down a really cool pathway now. And that's like freaking awesome. You know,
I cannot imagine, you know, I get to see it a little bit with my kids, and all mine are grandkids now, but yeah, to see that, you can see their brain. That's got to just feel really cool. I can see how you could get really passionate because, man, you get fed with that a lot.
Yeah. And then
that
like,
gets you like
and you see how smart these students are. I mean, like, you know, I've got students that know how to program robots autonomously. I have students that know how to like use code to detect color from pink from white from black and control a robot accordingly. Like, and I have adult engineers that see what these students do and are like, Max, I don't even know how to do what they're doing. So
because they just And my grandfather got excited when I changed my first alternator.
Right.
You know, and you get to see a kid doing something
rightfully
with a robot.
Like
I mean,
that feels like something that you should be super excited about. I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing though? And it is, you know, you become my grandkids, I look at these small children from 2 to 16, just what they do with my iPhone.
Yep.
Like, I feel like I'm so far advanced on an iPhone, and I'll be like, hey, can you help me find, I can't, they're like, really, Pop? They call me Pop. And they just like, they're like, here it is. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Like, I don't even scratch the surface of that. So I can't.
Yeah. It's just like that new generation, how the world's working, right? And how it's all connected. And, those same, you can only imagine the long list of things that you learned during your time growing up that maybe might not have as much applicability now, but this generation now is growing up with a certain new set of tools to understand and learn and now apply forward.
Yeah, you're teaching robotics, and they were excited to teach us how to type on a typewriter.
That's right, exactly.
And think about that.
Same
in computers.
concept, right?
Yeah.
It's just evolution, and it's exciting. It's awesome. What's there not be excited about? Yeah, there's some crazy weird AI shit happening. I get that, but it'll work itself out in one form or another, and there'll be some fake videos that people think is real, but there'll be different boundaries and parameters and things that get set up to hopefully keep things more in check versus less in check, and the world will keep spinning.
Yeah. Well, I know we had a short. This went fast, so
Yeah.
I've always got my best question of the day is just so do you feel like you were born, or do you think you were made?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear to me that you're made. So I just feel, to your question, there's a variety of different experiences that people will be exposed to either on purpose or by chance that will shape who they are, and not overnight, but definitely same light bulbs we were talking about, maybe these kids, right? And it shapes them and makes them who they might be. I think for me personally, there's no doubt that those different types of experiences that I've had, everything from the business plans, starting up these viral phenomenons to traveling to Bangkok 2 weeks ago and seeing what that, continent has to offer in Asia, just helps continue to make me who I am and continue to mold into something hopefully awesome, impactful, and do some more cool shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great answer. That's the great thing about that question. There's no wrong answer, and they're all different, but that's a great one. Well, one thing I'll tell you is the great thing for you is you're not done being made yet.
I appreciate
you're so
that.
young, and you got a lot of runway ahead of you. So thank you very much for your time. It was a great time talking to you, Max.
I enjoyed it very, very much. So thank you so much for having me. This was
Look
great.
forward to it. We're going to do this again because I want to hear some more stuff I want to go down maybe next one we'll just talk about cars.
Let's do it.
All right, sounds great.
I would be so down.
All right, perfect. Thanks again.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Take care.